Hi, everybody. Welcome back to stage one. How has your first day at Republica been? Excellent. I've also had a very exciting day. And now I am very excited for this next session, as I am going to be interviewing Douglas Rushkoff in just a few minutes. He has been named one of the world's most influential intellectuals by MIT. He is an author and a documentarian who studies autonomy in the digital age. Rushkoff's work explores how different technologies change our relationships to money and power, so it's a perfect topic for this year's Republica. He has been instrumental in also shaping these digital spheres that we populate by coining concepts such as viral media, screen ages, and social currency. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, he is also an author of many books, including the recent Team Human, which is based on his podcast, also a very recommendable digital space, and of course, the newly published Survival of the Richest, Escape Fantasies of Tech Billionaires. And I'm looking forward to speaking to Douglas about this book now. Please give him a big round of applause. He can be here with us virtually today. It's great to have you, Douglas.
Hey. Thanks. Great to be with you.
I'm really excited to meet you and about this conversation, and your book is such a fantastic read. Highly recommend it to everybody in our audience. A point of inspiration for those who don't know that yet for the book was that you were invited to what you thought was going to be a keynote at an event, and it turned out to be, let's say, the bat den of different billionaires inviting you to discuss how they could survive upcoming apocalypse of climate change or some other catastrophe that's heading towards us, and wanted your advice how to manage that. So maybe you can give our audience a little impression of what that pretty awkward meeting must have been like for you.
Yeah, well, I do get invited to speak to rich tech people a lot, and I don't know that they want my advice usually so much as the experience of being scolded. I'm in some ways I'm like a intellectual dominatrix, So wealthy tech bros will hire me to explain to them why what they're doing is so wrong, to punish them for their misdeeds. Thank you, sir. May I have another? And so I figured it was one of those where I was supposed to do a talk about. They told me originally I was supposed to speak about the digital future for a bunch of investors. So I had prepared this hour-long talk about the evil ways of tech capitalism and how they're, rather than making technologies for people to use, they're building technologies to use on people to control us and, basically import behavioral finance routines into our social media algorithms. And I'm waiting in the green room for them to come and, clip on the little mic. And instead of bringing me out to do the talk, they brought 5 men into the green room who sat around this little table wearing their Patagonia sweaters and things and started peppering me with these questions about the future. I mean, I'm used to some of those too. I can never tell if they're testing me or actually trying to find out where to place their bets. So they asked questions like, virtual reality or augmented reality, or Ethereum or Bitcoin. And then finally, one of them said, Alaska or New Zealand. As to where to put his bunker for the event, which is what they call it. The event is the electromagnetic pulse, or nanotech disaster, or climate change or nuclear war that makes their current lifestyle all but unlivable, and they have to retreat to their bunkers. And, because I am the dominatrix there, all I think to do is to try to tweak them, to try to help them see how silly they're being. So I kept saying to them, yeah, well, if you've got these bunkers, what about the rest of us? Aren't we going to come and invade or get through your fence and take your food? And they said, oh, well, we've got Navy SEALs. It's specially trained forces from the U.S. Navy who are, a speed dial away, waiting by fully gassed helicopters to come out and guard our compounds as soon as we give them the signal. And so then I asked them, well, how do you keep control of your Navy SEALs after your money is worthless? Because if the apocalypses happen, you're not going to be able to pay these guys anymore. They're going to turn on you. And I remember one of them opened his little moleskin book and he wrote, "How to pay for the Navy SEALs after money is worthless." And they spent, the rest of the hour really debating how to control them. One of them was saying, "Oh, well, I could be the only one who knows the combination to the safe where we keep the food," as if Navy SEALs don't have a lot of experience getting information out of people, right? I told them, they're going to be spending the rest of their the entire apocalypse being waterboarded by Navy SEALs. Or one of them said that they're going to have implants they could put into people that would control, what they have access to in the facility, and then those implants could be used as some kind of a shock collar if people are misbehaving. And again, Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, you don't want to be trying to control those people in that way. So I was left kind of shocked that these people, the wealthiest, most powerful people I had ever been in a room with were nonetheless incapable of imagining a positive future. Now, I felt like they are, projecting onto technology and the future the same designs that they have on us. The ill will with which they implement and execute technology, of course, is going to be reflected in the way that they believe those technologies will ultimately impact them and ultimately come for them.
Right, and that is exactly what your book is about, not just this experience. That's just kind of the opening scenario for a more philosophical and practical reflection of the world that we live in, very much shaped and created by these technical structures, but by exactly this mindset that you describe in your book. And you also call it the mindset. Can you give our audience a quick definition of what that means to you and how, as you explain in your book, it's really kind of a red thread, sadly, throughout many ages of our civilization, kind of from Bacon right through to this Anthropocene. So what does the mindset mean and how is it shaping our lives?
Most simply, as far as those 5 tech billionaires was concerned, the mindset comes down to how much money do I need to make in order to insulate myself from the reality I'm creating by earning money in this way? Or understood from a technological perspective, it might be, how do I build a car that goes fast enough to escape from its own exhaust? Right. So the mindset is this idea that you somehow stay one step ahead. All the stuff that you're doing has terrible externalities, but can you do one more thing to escape from the last bad thing you did? And what it comes from, I think, the mindset, its origin is in this idea that people are the problem and technology is the solution, right? That we are the problem. We are the thing to be solved for. And you can go way back. You can find the mindset in the Bible when Pharaoh is concerned that the enslaved Israelites might replicate too fast like insects and come to outnumber him. What do? It's the beginning of eugenics. Let's kill each firstborn son and try to cull that population down so they can't threaten us. Or in more modern parlance, the mindset, you can find it in the origins of empirical science. I have nothing against real science. Science is great. Science is an open-ended exploration. It's a set of models we use to try to understand reality. But when Francis Bacon was selling the church the crown, I guess, on the idea of empirical science, he said that empirical science will let us take nature by the forelock, hold her down, and submit her to our will. Right? The forelock is hair. So science will let us take nature by the hair, hold her down, right? Nature's a woman, and submit her to our will. So it's basically, it's a rape fantasy, right? That science will let us de-animate nature, control nature, make nature less of a scary, dark moon forest, earthworm, soil, mushroom, female, magical, occult, unpredictable thing, and render it mathematical. It will reduce nature to these quantities that we can understand and can't threaten us. And if you look at your science and technology as a way of arresting and controlling and de-animating and quantifying, or in our day, quantizing nature, it feels safer to these dudes, right? To this tech bro, very fearful mindset.
Right. So this idea of control goes back to some inherent fear also in human nature, but has led to a world, that is created, these control spaces. Let's stay with that word. I think it links really nicely to a conversation I had this morning with Marlene Engelhorn, who thinks that people should be taxed more, especially rich people should be taxed more, where we spoke about this concept of benevolent oligarchy, and that's something you pick up in your book as well. This idea that some people, mostly men, feel that they have understood the future better than others, and therefore need to sort of guide us all on their vision toward it, or at least control us all in their vision toward it. Perhaps you can expand a little bit on that as well.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. There was a moment, and I actually wrote about it in the book, this strange story that almost no one's picked up on. And it was, I was interviewing a guy from Facebook and a guy from Twitter over the internet for the book, while the January 6th rush on the Capitol was happening in the US, this revolt or insurrection or whatever we call it. And one of the guys asked the other one, if you could push a button and make those people disappear, would you do it? Just make them go away. And the other guy was like, yeah, I guess I would. And then they said, to me, would you do it? I said, no, I wouldn't. I said, what if you could push a button and just have them all think differently and have them all, well, no, I don't think I would do that either. Just push a button and flip them as if you could just change people that way. And I realized that this was their understanding of how technology works, that you can use technology to fix the way people think. And even really well-meaning people do this. When I always think about the name of the California organization, the Center for Humane Technology, and they mean really well. But when I hear humane technology, I think about, so they want to treat people more humanely with technology. I think about the eggs that you can buy in the grocery store, the organic eggs that they say like cage-free chickens treated humanely. Right? So you treat the chickens humanely as you grow them and take their eggs and slaughter them, but you do it as humanely as possible. And the underlying assumption is that you're using technology on people to improve them, to make them better, to upgrade us, to make us more, have more utility value, or even to fix us mentally, right? If we've become addicted to our phones and anxious because of our social media feeds, the solution's not to put down the phone. The solution is to download an app that meditates you, right? Or makes you calm. So you have an app to correct the problems created by the app before that. And the whole frame is understanding human beings as these sort of programmable entities, that there's nothing really going on here. It's the argument I got in with Richard Dawkins and some of his scientist friends who say that I'm crazy for thinking that there might be soul, or there might be stuff we don't understand, that there might be this pre-existing consciousness before matter even, that there's something. And they call me a moralist and crazy, but There's a reason why a eugenicist like Jeffrey Epstein wants to fund, or wanted to fund, people who had that view of the world, that we are just responding to genetic code. There's nothing going on here. Because if all we are is unconscious beings responding to genetic code, then the object of the game is just spread your genetic code. Then you should have a dormitory with 100 young women who stay in special bedrooms and accept your seed, and you grow your genes, you spread your genes throughout the world. You know, it's that sort of the philosophy of a Musk or an Epstein, that's because there's nothing else going on here. And the threat to them, and this is why, you know, women and children and animals and soft and squishy spaces, the liminal places, are so disturbing to them, because that's where things like soul and uncertainty, that's where they exist. You know, the temptation of the technologist is to auto-tune humanity, to auto-tune us so everything we do is on one of the quantized lines. It's not in between. It's here or here, you know. And I can understand if you're producing Ariana Grande, great, she's a commercial product, you're going to get her to hit right on the note by auto-tuning her up right to 440 hertz, so she's on a perfect A, right? And it's a better product for the market. But what if you take Tina Turner, right, and you auto-tune her, right? She's reaching up for that note in We Don't Need Another Hero, right? Tina Turner reaching up for that note. The technologist looks at that reaching as noise, right? That's the noise. She's not on the note. We're going to hit the note. I look at that as the signal. That's the way she's singing the song. We listen to Tina Turner do it because the signal is the human being between those notes reaching up for them in those particular ways. Those aren't imperfections. That's the human expression, right? To auto-tune that reaching out of the song is to eliminate the soul, literally the soul from the music. You know, so that's really at the heart of the kind of the anti-human bias of this particular crowd of kind of billionaire technologists.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, there's so much to unravel, because you do a fantastic job in your book to share how some of these mindsets are linked and are really perpetuating themselves into this reality that we're all living in today. And I thought, I mean, amongst the really so many inspiring points in your book, one aspect is also talking about how we very often think about education as a fixer-all. You know, in many of these debates that we lead, also here on our stages at Republica, education always comes up as the key for how we can grow as humanity and get out of this. But a lot of times, this kind of betting or putting all your bets on education also means this idea of upgrading, like working on ourselves, becoming more skilled, learning how to code, learning yet another trait, and this idea that we're continuously trying to upgrade ourselves instead of downgrading the technological environments and their meaning to our lives.
Right, or it's really a matter of challenging the underlying assumptions of our society. You know, education was not started, public education was not started as a way of training people for the job market. Public education was originally, it was compensation for people who had to work in the coal mines all day, that you would at least educate them so after they've worked all day, they can get home and read and appreciate a novel, or read the newspaper and learn about different candidates and issues so that they could vote effectively and intelligently. It was compensation for work. But now we think of education as some kind of job training. We are letting the corporate sector externalize the cost of worker training to the public sector, to the education sector, which is not what it was for. Education was not to increase our utility value. Education was for the humanities, for the liberal arts, to increase our more kind of essential ability to understand and appreciate what it means to be human. It valued us as humans rather than just trying to increase our utility value as workers. So that's what we have to unwind when we think about education. And as we're finding, when the digital age came, they said, oh, everyone should learn STEM. Everyone should learn how to program so they can keep up in the digital age. And what we're finding right now is the first people who are being replaced by AI are programmers, or certain kinds of programmers and coders. That's the easiest thing for them to know. The hardest thing for them to know is the meaning of life, is theater and philosophy and art and all that in between liminal stuff. But that liminal human stuff is the stuff that the tech bro mindset has been running from all along. When I was talking to those billionaires about their bunkers and revealed to them that their billionaire bunkers really won't save them from the apocalypse, it did not deter them from wanting to build them. Because they've wanted those bunkers, these private islands, these seasteading independent nations, they've wanted that all along. The apocalypse, climate change, social unrest, those are just excuses to do the thing that they wanted to do all along, which was upload their brains to the metaverse and run around like Mark Zuckerberg with nothing from the waist down. I mean, that's telling, right? They want to run around as brains in cyberspace, not as humans on the ground with feet on the soil in the living matrix of wet, dark, feminine fairies and worms and trees. It's that interconnectedness, that negation of the illusion of individuality that's really upsetting to people that want to think of themselves as, Ayn Rand libertarian individuals with free independent will, to find evidence that there's no such thing as an individual, that we're all connected, that you learn polyvagal theory and you find out that all of our nervous systems are part of one thing. You learn in school that trees compete for sunlight and then find the real science that trees are sharing nutrients under the soil through a network of mycelia, that they're actually just kind of one big tree. That's upsetting if you've been spending your life trying to become a singular thing, right? To rise from the chrysalis of matter as a pure independent consciousness. The fact that there's no such thing is deeply threatening.
Right, and I want to spend the minutes that we have remaining not going down that vision of singularity and what people who share that mindset might be hoping for in the future, but the alternatives that you offer in the final chapters of the book, because you're not just critiquing this mindset and the status quo as it is, but you're also offering a vision and a perspective of how things could be. So I would like to talk about that and the fact that you also, as you're saying, seeing perhaps some small signs of these systems, perhaps frizzling a bit. So this idea that a new generation of people does not want to give up all their lives to work in the same kind of jobs that we've been working in. This idea of lying down instead of leaning in, which we're also seeing amongst young dissidents in China and other places. Are you seeing hopes for protest? I mean, there's another aspect, which I'm not sure how much time we'll have to discuss, but you describe in your book a lot of protest against the mindset that we've seen in recent years has been part of the same mindset, in effect, and driven by what you call the mob. Maybe you can explain that concept really briefly, but then go into perhaps where you're seeing hope.
Well, I mean, some of the resistance against the mindset are from conspiracy theorists. Steve Bannon kept asking me to be on his podcast because he saw in my Team Human work the same thing that he's looking at. Here's a big technocracy trying to control people, and we've got to rise up against it. But the difference between me and Bannon's people is Bannon's people take the tech bros at face value. They actually believe the tech bros can do the things that the tech bros are saying they can do. But they can't, right? These technologies don't actually work. There's no such thing as artificial intelligence. There's, kind of a really good web browser, but that stuff's not there. So that's the sort of the angry mob is the sort of alt-right extreme, but understandable assertion of some sense of humanity or localism against this abstractness. And that's because really what we're looking at is capitalism and digital technology dovetailing. right? They're both about rising above matter and controlling things through a symbol system. Whether you financialize markets with all of these, trading algorithms and derivatives of derivatives, or whether you're using technology to try to reprogram the world, you end up with these two symbol systems that have really mutually reinforced one another, which is why I look at resistance and it's very unsatisfying for people who want systemic changes, but resistance is reconnecting with your local self. It's getting your feet back on the ground, making eye contact with other people, learning how to do things with your hands. It's buying and borrowing things from neighbors instead of going to the Walmart. If I need to put a hole in the wall of my house, the first impulse, this is actually, Cory Doctorow talks about this. The first impulse we have in America is to go to Home Depot and buy a minimum viable product rechargeable drill that we'll use once to make that hole and put it in the garage, and it will die before we can use it again, and we throw it away. So we've sent some kids into rare earth metal mines in Africa to get the cobalt and molybdenum for the thing. You spend the carbon footprint to make the thing, and then we throw it out where it sits on a toxic waste dump in Brazil where some other children pick for the renewable parts, rather than going to a neighbor's house and saying, Bob, can I borrow your drill? Right now, we've got fear of borrowing the drill from Bob because, well, what will Bob want from us? What if Bob wants to come over to our next barbecue? What if Bob wants me to tutor his kid in math? All those what ifs, to me, we have to learn to see those as good things, not bad things. That we borrow the drill from Bob and Bob becomes your friend, your neighbor's your friend, and you're trading stuff and hanging out with. That's good, not bad. Having obligations to other people is what binds a community together. That's why when someone moves into your neighborhood, you bring them a plate of brownies. You're not doing it because they need brownies. You're doing it to indebt them to the neighborhood so they have a reason to come back to you with that plate and do something for you. These are good things, not bad things. And finally, you say, everybody's lending and borrowing drills and lawnmowers from each other. What happens to the drill company? What happens to the lawnmower company? As if it's our obligation as people to support these businesses that we need to be making more stuff and growing the GDP, right? So just borrowing a drill, while it sounds really small, it starts to unravel all of the assumptions that we human beings are here to serve the market and that our technology should be used to make us, to increase our utility value in our service to the market, rather than saying, oh, wait a minute, these technologies might be able to help us generate an abundance that then changes what the market is even for, that creates the possibilities for commonses and sharing and less work, rather than to keep doubling down and accelerating on this bizarre amplification of a single market model.
And you make a really clear, yes, let's applaud, I've agreed, let's please applaud. And you make a really clear point at the end of the book. We have to rethink what progress means. We have to rethink how we want to live, because there will not be enough resources to fix things with technology. We cannot throw more tech at tech to fix our problems. So this idea of degrowth, of reshaping things in the form of cooperatives, reverse tax policies, regenerative systems, that's what you're banking on as solutions. Of course, this is a quote, progress doesn't happen in a straight line, is what you say toward the end of the book. That's a pretty hard concept to sell, and I think it's something that I'm sure most of the people in the audience here have caught on, but how, and maybe as a call to action also for us for the next days of Republica, how do we start moving faster in that direction together, more cooperatively? Because I feel at the moment we're putting so much pressure on individuals in society that it's increasing this polarization that the mindset has also contributed to in the past. So maybe you have a couple of words of advice for us on how to start building that other reality.
I mean, yeah, without getting too spiritual on you, although ultimately it is kind of a social spiritual challenge. when I say that progress doesn't happen in lines, I mean that progress happens kind of in a spiral or in circles, that you only want it to happen in a line if you're trying to escape from what you did before. Right? You're trying to get away from that karma, so you need to go in a line and faster because it's catching up with you, right? If you're not doing something bad, if you're not soiling your neighborhood, then you don't need to escape from it, right? You can think of it as a living system, as a more circular thing, and even time itself. You can start thinking about time back on the analog clock and start thinking about it in terms of the cycles rather than the idea of getting somewhere. Where do you think you're getting? And when we're talking about social change, I mean, I guess what I would advise along the same lines is it's very tempting, partly because we're techno-solutionists, so many of us, and we can't help it, is we say, all right, so how do we get people to do this? How do we get people to be more that? Once you're thinking that, you're out of it. It's lost. Once you're trying to get people to do anything, now you are master and they are enslaved, right? You are manipulating others. You are changing people in order to get where you want. Instead, what you can think about is how do we engender conditions that make it easier for people to X or make it easier for people to Y? So you're not manipulating the people. You are remaking the environment. It's more like setting up for a party than giving people a script for what to do when they get to that party. And I think that's the way we do social change. But what it finally means, and this is the scary part, is that the real change happens in the moment, right? It happens right now. It happens through your lived experience. That's the one thing we have that the AIs don't and never will, is the actual experience of life. And I've gotten maybe so cynical about plans and different kinds of things that I'm focused almost entirely on the moment. Are you doing it in the moment, right? In this moment, am I doing this thing with the greatest amount of integrity? Not, I'm going to do this sacrifice now for the better end later, right? There's no ends justifies the means journey that will suffer now and get to that place. No, it happens actually. Now is the only time we have. So if you focus on doing things in this moment with the greatest integrity possible, it ripples out. It gets difficult even, but it's so much more grounding. And what it does is it reclaims the home field advantage that we human beings have. Capitalism is in the future. Futures are in the future, right? Technology is about building something for the future, but we own this now moment. And if we claim it, the now, and claim the physical world, the environment that we're standing on, we have a home field advantage, and we actually have the opportunity to experience that as grounded and real and human and even fun, rather than some kind of a war.
Well, Douglas, I have to say this, I think some more applause is in order. These last 30 minutes of moments, this experience talking to you has been an absolute honor. I wish we had another 3 hours, but thank you so much for being part of Republica 23.
Thank you. I'm so honored to reach you like this. I know it was virtual, but thank you so much.
Still fantastic to have you. Thank you so much for your time and your fantastic book.